Hey folks, my name is Sean and thanks for joining me today. I'm in my Model Y today and with the family, and we're doing a family trip to visit my parents. They're roughly 100 miles away. I tried charging my car up all the way, but I didn't fully top it off, but I did get to 321 when I left the house. Right now it's 318. I'm a few miles away from the house. I'm on the freeway now. On today's trip, we're gonna see how much real world miles we get out of our tank today. And I wanted to do this test because about a year ago I did this test in my Model 3 Performance and I was not able to get there and back on one charge. And so like I said, it's roughly 100 miles each way, 200 miles full trip, and I was not able to get there and back in my Model 3 Performance. So I want to see how the Model Y does. My driving habits are going to be exactly the same, roughly 70, 75, 80 on this trip, depending on how traffic does. And so I'm not stepping on the pedal or anything like that. I'm just going to cruise with traffic. So we start off with 321. And we'll see how much we have by the time we get to my parents' house. So right now we're cruising and we're going 64. Because there's a little bit of traffic, it says that I'll have 61% by the time I get there. Initially, when we started the trip, it said I would have 59%. And so as we continue to move along the trip and go with traffic or faster in traffic, it'll kind of give us a gauge on where we're at and how we're doing. So a little different picture here. We're at the halfway mark, about 48 miles into this trip. It says we're kind of on track. We should have 62% by the time we get there. Like I said, we started at 321. Right now we're at 262. And so if I do the math, we've actually traveled 48 miles, but we've used 59 miles of range, and that's expected on freeway, just because on the freeway sometimes you're going 70, sometimes you're going 60, sometimes you're going 80, just depending on the flow of traffic, and so we're going to use a little more than expected on the freeway. So I've seen a lot of FSD beta, and I have FSD pay for it, but I just don't have the FSD beta yet, and I'm excited to kind of finally use that, because that's what a lot of people paid for. But what I will tell you is that FSD is autopilot is much more stable today than ever. And on this trip, there's a couple examples where I didn't capture it, but a lot of times when I do family trips, my wife hates that I use FSD because it'll make lane change recommendations when we don't need to. It'll kind of slow down or jerk when we may not need to. And on this trip, I had kind of navigated on autopilot all the way to my parents' house, and she didn't even notice that. Right? It's much more stable today than it's ever been, I think. One kind of thing I noticed on this trip that I really like was that when a truck was kind of riding that middle line, it merged me to the left a little bit, and so for me, I really like that. That's what I would have done if I was driving. Also, if I was driving past the truck and the truck was right in the center of its lane or to the right of its lane, like it acted like normal, I would just stay in the middle of the lane. It didn't have to unnecessarily move me to the left lane. And so that was those little stuff. It's all improved over time, over the last several months, over the last year or so. And so I think the autopilot is much more stable today than ever. On this little exit right here, I was wondering what it was going to do, because once you get off the freeway, it slows you down to 25. FSD handled that without any issues, and I finally took control here when we got to the light. And so overall, much more stable than what I'm used to. So we're finally at my parents' place, and Tessa was right. It guesstimated that we would have 59% by the time we get there, and we do have 59%. 193 is the miles that we have left. So the total trip was 101 miles, and I used up 128 miles of battery range, and so that calculation is 79%, 78.9%. Hey guys, so we're gonna head back home now. The range right now is 55%. By the time we get home is 11%. I feel safe about driving home with 11% of range left. If there's any crazy traffic or anything like that, there's a couple stops along the freeway on the way home, and so we don't need to worry about anything, and we should be fine to get home. So we are home now. 43 miles of range left. We started off with 321. We've actually used 208 miles of range, and so 208 miles divided by the difference of 321 from 43, that's roughly about 75% of range. And so if it says you got 100 miles left, you can drive 75 actual miles, and that's what my calculation is for this trip here. It was mostly freeway, 97% freeway, 75 all the way there and back. My efficiency is 293, which is more than which is less efficient and more than what Tesla is rated at. Kilowatts hours U61, and so my cost is 8 cents, and so you kind of do the math. It was about $7 for 200 plus miles if you're concerned about gas. And I think that's about it. Overall, good trip. I made it there back without any issues, not having to stop along the way. My wife appreciated that. That's all for today. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.